Representative Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for appearing with us today. Ranking Member Holt made a big issue of the pipeline accident in Arkansas from a few days ago. Do any of you know any about the age of that pipeline, when it was built?
I believe
it was built in the 40s.
Now, 60 years old.
Okay. Has the pipeline technology improved in the last 70 years? So, I mean, isn't the XL pipeline going to have better technology when it comes to detection, to corrosion protection? Is it going to have better protection, better technology when it comes to automatic shutoff capabilities? So
that's a binary question. The answer is yes.
Okay. So really comparing a 70-year-old pipeline to a current generation pipeline is really kind of a deceptive argument here. So let's talk about more safety from a different perspective. Let's talk about the options. This oil is going to go somewhere. It's either going to come to the United States or it's going to go to China or anywhere else for that matter. So let's look at the environmental outcome that we have. And I would ask you, Mr. South, will it be better if it goes to China, or would it be better if it is refined in their refineries that have older technology and less environmental rigor than ours, or is it going to be better to be refined in the United States?
Well, clearly, Congressman, we believe that would be better utilized here in the United States. And I guess if I may, I'd just like to touch on a point about this project that really hasn't been well covered here, at least in today's hearing. About 100,000 barrels per day of the pipeline's capacity will actually be Bakken Formation,
correct,
light crude from North Dakota and Montana. And in that region of the country, we've so dramatically expanded production that we've really outstripped our capacity to move it effectively.
Well, that brings us to our next question. So, I mean, if let's say that it's going to come to the United States, come heck or high water, whether there's a pipeline or not. So that means we've got other options to bring it here. We can bring it by truck, we can bring it by rail, we can bring it by barge. And so, in terms of environmental and safety impact, which of those is a better solution from an environmental perspective, Mr. Drevna?
Congressman, absolutely. As I testified earlier, that pipeline transport is the most efficient, safe way of doing it.
It's kind of a no-brainer, right?
I mean,
yeah, that's kind of what I thought. How do we have a better jobs outcome? Is it better if we export it, if Canada exports it to China, or if they export it to us and we build a pipeline and re-refine it? Mr. Eisenberg.
I think the simple answer to that question is much more of a job creator here in the United States
okay,
if we keep it here.
Now, do any of you have the answer as to how many pipelines currently cross the U.S.-Canadian border today? There are 7. So, Mr. South, have you heard of any particular problems we've had with the other ones? I mean, some of those, the first one was approved, the most recent one was approved in 2009 during this administration without a lot of fanfare. Have we heard of any problems from that pipeline, which is up and running?
No, it's my understanding, Congressman, that there have been a couple of leaks in the Keystone line. Those have been relatively small leaks. We're really part of the startup process for getting that thing online and getting the valves covered, and they were, it's my understanding, largely contained and resolved, cleaned up pretty quickly.
Okay. Mr. Eisenberg, Mr. Drevna, any other issues with respect to the other 7 pipelines that cross the border that you've heard of?
Well, we would like to live in a risk-free world, but again, I haven't heard of anything major. If there have been, unfortunately, they're cleaned up quickly. And again, the most efficient, safe, modern way to transport.
And the last question has to do with national security. I mean, and again, these are no-brainer questions in my mind, but we're having to have a hearing to go through this because the administration doesn't seem to get it. So is it better for us to import oil from the unstable Middle East or to import oil from our friendly neighbor Canada? So I'm just going to yes or no answer from Mr. South.
clearly we'd be better off importing that from our Canadian allies. And again, this is largely a substitution and backing out Venezuelan and Mexican heavy oils, and
Okay. Mr.
increasingly
Eisenberg?
Saudi Arabian heavy oils as
Mr.
well.
Eisenberg?
Clearly, it makes more sense for national security to import from
Okay.
Canada.
Mr. Grevena?
I wouldn't even consider it imports from Canada. I consider it.
Okay. Thank you. I've run out of time. I yield back.
Thank you. Representative Daines.